So greetings and welcome to today's educational program. Customer Journey Mapping, Defining Touchpoints and Metrics by Lisa Custer. This is your moderator, Doug Wood, with ASQ's Quality Management Division. So today we have this pleasure of hearing from Lisa Custer. Please join me in welcoming her. Lisa is a principal consultant with Curtis & Company, with over 25 years of experience in all aspects of process management and continuous improvement. Lisa's specialties are Six Sigma, Lean, Design, Total Productive Maintenance, and Total Quality Management. Lisa has a PhD and a master's in industrial engineering from Arizona State University and a bachelor of mechanical engineering from Georgia Institute of Technology. And so without any further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce Lisa Custer. Lisa, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much, and I'd like to welcome everybody who's attending, whatever time zone you're in. I am in the Arizona time zone, so it's still light outside. This is a takeoff on a presentation I did for ASQ several years ago with the ask of really trying to look at the touch points a little bit more. So here's what we're going to look at is customer journey mapping. Want to show you how to create a customer journey map and then be able to focus on both the business or that business and customer touch point interaction, which will give you your moments of truth, your wow moments, and be able to prioritize those, and the metrics. A little bit of background. I got interested in journey mapping in about 2013. I was working a very, very large project with a bunch of different organizations who had come in to help a Fortune 50 client. And everybody kind of had their tool set. The tool set that my organization was in there working with was a lot more of kind of the demand, the customer-centric design type of things. But one of the firms came in with this idea of a customer journey map, and it was kind of the first time I had seen it. And I just thought it was fascinating. It really was that front of the spear, that tip of the spear of how are we interacting with customers? How are the interactions that we do, that we initiate as a customer, as a firm, or as a company, how are they taken by the customer? And then vice versa. If a customer initiates an interaction, how does the company respond? And happy path, non-happy path, and then trying to solve some of those. So I want to take you through something. So why care about the customer? I need probably to find a little bit more recent example, but here's what I really liked about it. Armed with advanced analytics, so we're all starting to learn big data and social media data, customer experience leaders gain rapid insights to build customer loyalty, make employees happier, achieve revenue gains of 5 to 10%, reduce costs by 15 to 20% within a couple of years. So a couple of things that really grabbed me about this piece. One is the make employees happier. If I know how to make a touch point with a customer the best possible experience for both them and me, and I understand what the customer's feeling and thinking and their expectations, I am so much more connected to my process and to my customer than just moving something down the line. And so I really, really liked that element of this quote. So a customer journey map. I think they have several purposes. My favorite purpose is just the visual representation of the interactions. So I've done about 10 of these for different organizations, and unfortunately I can't share those with you because honestly once you do one, and it takes months to do it, I mean you can sketch them out in a couple of workshops, but to really get them and understand them and apply the metrics to them, they almost become a 5-year plan, and I'll show you a little bit about that. But it looks at the lifespan of a product or process. How do we get somebody interested in something? How do we bring them into brand loyalty? How do we service them? How do we do after sales service? How do we keep them in the family, so to speak? And really understanding that. The other piece that I highlighted, focus on the touch points. You can't measure everything, or I guess today in big data we can measure everything, but really we can't necessarily manage everything. So let's really figure out what those touch points are and understand what the customer needs at those touch points. Identify the moments of truth, the important touch points that really can make or break a relationship. And I'll give a couple of good examples as we go through. And then how do we measure that interaction? Thumbs up, thumbs down, scale from 1 to 5. But those moments of truth are where we really get the customer to move from being a customer for us to being an advocate. Hey, these guys took care of me when I had an issue. And then look at representing the customer thinking and motivation. And many of the ones I do typically are for businesses. And so it looks at the business processes that are supporting those touch points in those moments. And then lastly, the technology piece. So here's an example. Again, I can't really share the ones I've done for industry because there's just way too much kind of confidential stuff. So one of my colleagues and I worked on an example. So this is shopping for the kids for Christmas. It's somewhat of a traditional shopping, customer journey map, but it has some of the big keys of how a customer, potential customer, would go about finding and understanding the goods and services that your business provides, exploring and understanding options, deciding whether or not to make a purchase or to move forward, receiving that good or service. And then it's kind of the back end in the return processes, and sometimes there's a recycle process at the end as well for a lot of physical goods, but being able to really continue to engage the customer in a very positive way as you go through. So we'll get into the anatomy of this and really look at where some of the opportunities are for identifying those touch points and identifying where some of the metrics come from. This one was fun because we turned it around and also did one for the parents. So shopping for Christmas from a kid's standpoint is kind of all about magic and joy and getting a puppy or something. But for the parents, their thinking, their anxieties, their frustrations are very different than the kids. And this is similar to business in that when we do these customer journey maps, sometimes we have to do them for multiple personas. Sometimes it's understanding our core customer. Sometimes it's understanding super users or people that we really want to be early adopters. So going through some of the design thinking type of tools up front to really understand who our customer base is would probably be a really good predecessor to a tool like this. Sometimes starting to figure out the customer journey map will take us down a path whereby it will help us expose or identify who some of those personas are. In this case, I've got two personas. I've got the kids and I've got the parents. Want to step way back, and so we've got this kind of transparented out for a reason. It is a customer journey map. So just in the real estate that I tend to use on these, 60%, 70% of it is exactly looking or focusing on the customer. We put the verbs and put the terminology from the point of view of the customers. So we talk about buying, not selling. We talk about acquiring, not delivering, and really want to use the language of the customer in a customer journey map. Now, the way I've kind of developed my own methodology for this, or my own kind of map and icons, etc., underneath the customer journey map part, I'd like to look at the customer and business touch points, and you'll see some processes there. And sometimes our core processes as a business will span many of these customer journey phases. Sometimes they're very specific. The idea here, going back to some of the process engineering, business process management type of stuff, is most processes cross boundaries within an organization in order to deliver a premium customer interaction or service. So it's not just marketing does this and salespeople do this, but that green bar of customer and business touch points really looks at the processes that span customer phases, and then we can figure it out. And then my little blue box at the bottom is kind of the so what, the what's next from a company standpoint. What can we do about it? What are some things that we need to do, projects that we may need to put on some project list, or things that we need to focus on in order to get better? So here's a kind of a swipe from left to right, and to me it's kind of the anatomy. And this is not necessarily the way that you build them, but it is a good way to really go from high level to a very detailed level of the customer, and then kind of back out to the business element of this. So what phase are we in? Typically 3 to 5, 6 phases, not every little step, but trying to, at a high level, understand what a customer is trying to accomplish. What are their goals? What are they thinking and feeling? So the ethnography, the day in the life of walking in somebody's shoes and trying to understand what questions they have, or what anxieties they have, or what frustrations they have at any given step. And then in a lot of the design world, how do we fix that? How do we keep those frustrations from happening? Or if the frustration does occur, how can we be heroes in that? The action is the fun part. That's the part that a lot of people look at. It's just a really high-level map of both happy path and a couple of the variant paths that may happen, and then the customer touch points, and then business opportunities on the bottom. Just a little bit before you begin building one of these, define the boundaries. And one of my challenges on product is the entire life cycle of the product, including, in a lot of cases these days, the recycling piece. So I spent several years working in the glass industry, basically making glass bottles. And so there's a recycle component to that. So not only do I have to deliver glass bottles to whomever is going to fill them with really yummy things, or things that need to go to market, but it's the recycling piece of that. And a lot of products these days have a recycling element to them. From a process is try to start in that, how are you going to entice somebody to come? What are the pre-steps almost to the process that people are thinking and feeling about? And is there any after service that can be done? Again, trying to keep that relationship, with your customer alive, so they will become an advocate for you. Define the customer. Again, this is where some of that persona work can come in. So maybe who's your typical customer? Do you have a super user customer, or that first person who wants to try everything? And then possibly, is there somebody new to your part of a business, or new to this type of service? How are we going to bring that person in and make them comfortable and build trust in order to try our product or service? The journey phase. So these are the high-level group of activities that the customer does. Again, words that the customer uses. 4 to 6 steps. Each phase has a logical beginning and end, because this is where we're really going to put some of our measurable outcomes. And the words we're going to use are going to represent the language of the customer. So in this case, for both personas, they're overlapping. I need to discover your product or service. I want to explore, which means I want to look at options. I'm going to decide. I'm going to receive a product or service, and then I'm possibly in a case of the product return or recycle. And believe it or not, for almost every purchasing decision, these are pretty much the steps that organizations go through. You may choose to use slightly different words. I'm not saying you have to use mine, but basically a purchasing opportunity of a product or service has these types of phases in it. So here's our example of shopping for the kids. Discover, explore, decide, receive, return, and just taking that forward. So the next one is the customer thinking. And this is, to me, this is the hard part. This is where we're really trying to get into the thoughts and minds and hearts of the people that we're trying to attract, or the people that we really want using our product or service. So customer research, lots of different ways to go do this. Interviews, surveys, focus groups, ethnography, complaints and compliment lines, social media. And the idea here really is that ultimate voice of customer experience. Really trying to get into, again, the heads and hearts of your customer. Not only on a scale from 1 to 5, what do they currently think of your service, but going further and asking the question, what problem are you trying to solve with this potential product or service that we offer? How can we represent that to you in a way that is easily understandable? Some of my favorite things to do are kind of the secret shopper thing. If for like services or even parts of like services, and talking to people in line. So a little bit more of maybe some ad hoc focus groups. For a couple of clients, one of the things we did is through this series of workshops is we built a customer journey map, and then we got to show it to senior leadership and get permission to go spend some money on formal focus groups and to actually have third party go out and test some of the ideas going forward. But this is the hard part about gathering this data. So here we have in the customer thinking, I've got some of these highlighted in these little blue bubbles, is from the parent's point of view in discovery is I want educational gifts. I think the kids said, I want a pony or a puppy. Can I do it on a budget? Do I need batteries? Can I pick it up assembled or wrapped? Will it arrive on time? So these are the things that parents, if you're shopping for Christmas or a holiday or a birthday, depending on how close you are, might be thinking about. And so how can your company be proactive about providing that information in a very concise, easy way for whomever the person trying to make these decisions is going to go through. So customer goals, so blowing this out a little bit. So again, not necessarily in order. We've gone journey to customer thinking to goal. So trying to really synthesize out of the customer thinking, maybe a little bit more in business language here, but what are the key things that the customer is really interested in? So if I look at the middle part of this process, decide, receive, and return from the parent standpoint, does it require batteries? Can I pick it up? Is there an option for assembly? Can I forward the list to Nana? Those types of things. What are the key takeaways? What are the key jobs to be done for those? So from the customer goal standpoint, I want to be able to place an order. I want it to be easy. And then from a benchmarking standpoint, if this were one of the things that we needed to build, who does some of the best ordering in the world? I want to understand delivery options. Can I pick it up versus will they deliver? And the interesting thing about this map was done well before COVID. It's been amazing how well COVID has kind of followed our cutesy example. And can I drop hints to the right people? So can we put in processes or can we put in technology to help do that? The cool thing about this is if we go and we do the ethnography, the focus groups, the survey, and that whole idea of placing an order is one of the key things or key items that a customer is interested in, then we can build metrics around that. Is it on time? Is it ease of use? Is it the information security of your website? And really trying to understand what the customer is interested in for each of these ideas. So here's some of the potential goals or metrics that we would have for the customer is exactly that. For placing the order, is it easy? So metadata would tell us how long it takes somebody to place an order. It could tell us how many orders actually have follow through. I start an order, did I actually put my credit card in there? Kind of from a roll throughput yield standpoint. Receive the order, time to receive a shipping information. Organizations have gotten really good about this. Time to receive, how long is it going to take me? And then the accuracy of the information. Did I get what I think I was ordering? Those types of things. Return, availability of product to make an exchange, ease of the exchange, satisfaction with new product. So again, it could be survey, There's a lot of metadata these days that we could track on this to make sure that we were really trying to meet the customer needs on these things. The action part to me is the fun part. The sequence of actions that the customer takes through the process and either using the product or process or both. Because a lot of products, physical products these days, also tend to have a service element to them or an experience element to them with a lot of electronic toys. So the first thing we want to do is build out the happy path. And then we want to start thinking about the unhappy path. These are the opportunities that if we're not perfect, possibly through no fault of our own, but if we're not perfect, do we have resolutions that would positively impact customer satisfaction? And my favorite example of this was a gentleman I was working with. He and his wife are getting ready to hike some ridiculous number of miles in the Appalachian trails, and he had bought, both he and his wife, new hiking boots. And they started to breaking them in, going on kind of 2- and 5-mile hikes on the weekends. And a couple of weeks later, his wife says, "Well, these hiking boots, you know, they're not as comfortable as I'd like them to be if I'm going to go hike a ridiculous number of miles on the Appalachian trails." So he calls up the company and says, "We ordered these hiking boots in a size 7.5. I'd like to order them in a size 8." And the lady on the other end of the line says, "Well, thank you, sir. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to send you the 8s, but I'm also going to send you this different boot in a size 7.5 and an 8. And here's the kicker. I would like you to send the boots that your wife has currently back. I would really like to understand what. I would really like to have those boots back." And my friend goes, "Oh, no, we're fine. She's walked 50 miles in these things. They're broken in. They're used. We don't want our money back." And she goes, "No, I don't want you having that example, or I don't want you having one of our product in your house that you were unhappy with." And I just thought that was amazing. And the company ended up being LL Bean, which is very standard of LL Bean service. But it was that turning that return into just a wow experience. So can you really look at some of the potential unhappy path connections, because those are some of your breakthrough moments with your customer is, wow, they really treated me well. They understood what my needs were, and they really made a difference in what I was doing. Now, one of the things about this, and sometimes it's hard to do these days because so much of what we do is virtual, so much of what we do is electronic, but to the best of your ability, while you're looking at your journey map and your happy path and unhappy path, is try to make it technology agnostic. Don't worry, we're gonna get to the technology part, but what should that interaction feel like? What should that takeaway that the customer has from that interaction? And then you can go back and work with the engineers or work with your customer service people to figure out the best way to do that. Is it a personal touch and phone call? Can you replicate that with some sort of online type of thing? But really try to figure out the interaction first. So to me, I always like to try to use little cartoon characters or try to represent things. You'll see a little bit of technology represented here where you have a website and an app. So here's the customer journey from the parent standpoint. I want educational gifts. Where are they going to hear about it? If I had some sort of toy store where I could go in and maybe there's a survey I could take about my child, his likes, his dislikes, maybe some educational opportunities that I'd like my child to have, and then I could come up with a list. I can tell you how to order them. Potentially, as an organization, we could assemble it or wrap it for you. You can track the order, those types of things. So a couple of things. The happy path are kind of the solid lines. The optional path, and didn't really call them unhappy, but optional paths that maybe would be taken frequently, or at least could be a opportunity for us to shine a little bit in that dotted line. So here's the customer touch points. This is really where the business can make an impact and hopefully differentiate themselves. And so I know there's all kinds of different scales for this. My favorite one was a Disney trip that I scheduled for my family a couple of years ago. I was 18. It was my niece's 25th birthday, and for her 25th birthday, she wanted a family vacation to Disney World, and we'd never been to Disney World. And so I'm on the phone trying to arrange something, and the gentleman says, "Would you answer a question after I get off?" And I thought the most brilliant question I ever got from a customer survey standpoint was, "Would you hire this guy for your business?" I mean, just how open of a question is that? It's not, were you satisfied, did you get your answer met, et cetera. Would you hire this person to work in your business? But that's kind of the level that we're looking for in these customer touch points. How can we give our employees the tools, the techniques, the scripts, the permissions in order to really get to that delighted point? So we're going to look and define these sequences at more at a business process level, and then these customer goals can really help us look at the critical to quality pieces of our process. So here's the touch points, and then this is that green bar about 3/4 of the way down. So customer touch points in Discover, we need to be able to catch the customer's eye. So great, sales and marketing, where are we going to advertise? How are we going to get the word out? Is there a social media campaign? But from a functional standpoint, I need to catch the customer's eye. Not exactly functional analysis, it's a little cutesy there. But the next one, so again, I want this to be easy. So we need to be able to download and use the app in a really easy way. I'm sure many of you out there have gone to an app that you've tried to download, and maybe the download went well, and then to start it up or to really use it was kind of clunky. So if I'm looking at the customer touch points, I don't want to lose them because they can't download the app, or we haven't gotten to the latest version of iOS or the Google equivalent, and I want them to use the app. So is my app design relevant for what they're trying to do? Is it easy to use? Like any computer screen, I don't really want to go 6 levels in before I get to where I want. Is it going to be intuitive enough that people are going to want to use it? Take an order and pick up an order. Businesses have been doing that for centuries. Are we doing it in the right way for our customers? And then one of the things is send an ebook. So this was kind of one of the ahas, or the, hey, we could be cool as a company. What if we could send an ebook after they've placed an order? And again, we'd have to make sure that we're not violating any copyright. But if we could send an ebook, maybe it's a little video clip that it wasn't a directly identified customer need, but it's like, hey, it's the night before Christmas. Here's a little video you can watch with your kids. Again, just a little bit of push type of marketing. So here's where we're looking at a little bit more of the business process. So catching the customer's eye. How many social media impressions have we gotten from whatever our social media campaign was? What is the impact of those? So what's the follow through? What kind of percentage are we at? How many of those have been how many of those have actually driven visits to the website? From the download app, conversions of website visits to actually downloading the app. And then, again, using metadata. How long did it take? Is our technical team on it? Did the download get stuck in some particular phase? And making sure that that is seamless. And then the registration on the app is seamless. Taking the order, and then a little bit more of our traditional retail type of things. How many items did they purchase? And what is their shopping cart total? To look at a little bit of our effectiveness as we go through. Now here's one of my favorite pieces about this, is really standing back and looking at this map. How are we going to use it? We now have the customer's thinking and feeling on there. We have the important things, the customer goals on it. We have the happy path and some variant paths that might be fairly common. And then we have the customer touch points identified. Here's where we now put on our our technology roadmap hats, our 1 to 5 year strategy maps, and really look at it and say, what actions can we take immediately to positively impact the customer? There may be 1 or 2 key points that either we've heard about in some of our interviews or we're getting feedback on that we just really need to go focus on. It may not be a technology fix, may just be changing the way we do something. Great. The next one is much more of a technology roadmap. What technologies could really help us stand out from the crowd, not just because we want to be whiz-bang technology people, but actually using technology to further the process and make that seamless process. How and when they could be implemented, because I don't know a lot of people who can go to IT and say, I need something in a week and get it. The other piece is going back to a lot of us in the quality world is, where are the gaps in our current process? So voice of customer starts most DMAIC type processes. Where are the gaps in our current process? What do we currently have to go fix? And or how are we going to identify those and put those in the project management queue so we can systematically and in a measured way go make an impact to that customer feedback. And if it's a product, same thing. What are the gaps in our current product performance? How are we going to improve that? How are we going to keep up with the generations of product? If there's anything that needs to be recycled, or do we have the opportunity to rework something and make it better? What is the competition? So here's the opportunity for us to say, hey, here's what we think our customer wants. Let's go do a little bit of a competitive analysis and benchmarking. And it may be from an end-to-end process standpoint or a product standpoint, or it may be any one of the key journey phases. Who's the best at really trying to get the decision-making down and getting people to decide easily? Who's really good at returns? And then maybe looking at some of that recycle. So a couple of ways to do that is end-to-end. Is there any competition? What are their pros? What are their cons? Can we improve our process so much that it's better than theirs? And or just looking at it from a very functional standpoint, and maybe there are opportunities to partner with different organizations who aren't competing with you on the end-to-end process or product, but they could offer you a service that would really help things go forward. And then the last one is, where do we need additional information? And I told you that one of the benefits of this is if you can articulate the customer thinking and feeling, and you can put together the actions and understand the product level elements that make it important to the customer and the process elements that are important to the customer, reflect those in those touch points, you've got a real strong case to go to management and say, hey, we'd love to go study this. We'd love to go collect additional information. It might be customer information. It might be process. It might be, hey, can I go buy 5 of the competitors and do a re-engineering exercise? But if you can stick it out and put this much information together and you have an entire story, then it's really good to be able to take that and go forward with it. Here's what I do for business opportunities. And the idea behind the business opportunities is they typically do not follow the journey. Occasionally, we'll reorganize somewhat to align people a little bit better to the journey, but the business opportunities really do fall into their own categories. So from this one, the first piece was, how do we entice the customer? And so now we're going to take everything we've done in our customer journey map and the metrics that we've created and the touch points that we've identified and hopefully prioritized back and say, great, what are we going to do about these? Cool. So we're going to need some sort of multi-pronged approach: social media, print, TV, web. We may need to develop demos. What if we could go, and pre-COVID, what if we could go out to the mall and ask parents, or go to the toy stores and ask parents to to fill out our little survey in order to be able to gather enough information. And then, heck, let's shoot for the moon. What if we could do a virtual reality app to see if it would fit in my kid's room? What if we could do a virtual reality app that would let them maybe play with the toy or look at it in 3 dimensions before they decided that that was really what they wanted? A little bit out there, but it was fun. So how do we get the technology leverage? Establish my site for education and shopping, my Santa's Little Helper site, get the app up and running. Perfecting delivery. Okay, brass tacks. Great, we got people to order, we have to deliver it. So going back to just brass tacks of retail. Easy assembly, maybe not in our wheelhouse, but really how can we do this? So links to easy to follow video. Everything's on YouTube these days. We could create a series of really fun videos to put on YouTube. We could have like the Butterball Turkey. We could have a 1-800 helper line. We could actually get them to pay us to assemble it and ship it to them assembled. And then post-sale, how do we put processes together? So these would roll back to the different organizations, and some of these go through different organizations. Some of them might be very specific projects that we would take on in order to really meet or exceed customer expectations. But if we could do these things very well, then we should have a very good process, again, depending on what the overall journey looks like. So here's what we use it for. I like printing these out in color on 11 by 17 A3 type paper and folding them in half and carrying them in my notebook. So anytime anybody wants to talk about my project, I pull it out and I have this lovely colorful brochure, and I can show them, for this quarter, we're working on these 3 projects and we're going to impact these elements of the customer expectation. The other part is identify those customer satisfaction pulse points for data collection. And maybe it's as simple as asking, would you hire this service person in your organization? Multi-generational project plan, particularly the technology roadmap piece of it, identifying gaps in our current processes in order to be able to deliver and make improvements. And then just integrating this with whatever our current project management PMO office is, and just the continuous improvement part. Keep coming back to the map, looking at how our improvement is in certain areas month over month, trying to make those better. And then I would probably every 6 months or once a year go out and see if customer expectations have changed. Most of you know, who have been in quality, the customer expectations never stay the same. They always want more for less as things move forward. And the other part is making sure we're keeping up with our competition. So thinking about how you could use a picture like this in order to understand customer interactions and touch points, figure out the metrics that are important to the customer, not just how we're going to run our business and make margin, but the metrics that are important to the customer, and then how we're going to identify projects and make improvements to those projects and up the level of technology and seamlessness as we're going across. This is me. So I'm going to open it up for questions.
Okay. Thank you, Lisa.
You're welcome.
What a marvelous talk. Okay, we're getting a few questions rolling in here. I wanted to remind people that, you know, if they do want to you know, get copies of the slides, they can send you an email. Yep. We've got some really great questions here. Okay, while there's a few coming in, I'm going to ask you these. Here's one from Adriano. Can journey maps be created to describe the life cycle of an employee within an organization from an HR perspective?
Absolutely. Yes. I've had several black belts that I've coached do that, exactly that. To me, you almost have two customers there. Obviously, the employee is a customer, and how are you communicating with them? How easy is it for the potential employee or the person interviewing, or I guess the candidate? How easy is your process for the candidate to understand the expectations? The other customer you have is a hiring manager. So make sure that you're also making it easy on the hiring manager. But I love that one.
Okay. Here's another one, similar. Is journey mapping best suited for external customers, or are they also applicable for internal services within an organization, like legal or IT?
I think for service organizations within businesses, I think they would be fantastic. The best example I've seen was a maintenance department in a large factory did a customer journey map, and how maintenance was going to support their customer, which was operations, and the data that they were collecting and how they were going to try to be more proactive, less reactive. But it was a really nice kind of pivot on this. Formatted much the same type of questions, just the definition of customer supplier was a little bit different.
Okay. Trying to do away with the grumpy mechanic model, right?
Exactly. So it was a really interesting guy who was the maintenance lead who was getting his master black belt, and he thought this was just cool and did some really interesting things.
Oh, amazing. Okay. Speaking of services, here's one. Please explain differences between objects and services. A pure service company will see differences in what way?
So a pure service company is going to see it's going to see the transaction differently. A lot of times, so I'm going to go to banking. A lot of times, for example, you want a car loan or a mortgage even. The two value-added steps are the decision, are you going to approve me or not? And then you cut me a check, or you cut a check to the car dealership or the escrow company. But think about all the interactions that you have in order to go through that financial process. And these days, so many of them are online. So things like Rocket Mortgage has really gone. I don't know if they have a customer journey map. I don't work with them. I have no clue. But thinking about things like that and how they've really thought about that human interface in order to deliver a service, typically with no human interaction. And they get great reviews. So that's kind of interesting. There's a lot of just pure service where you just need information. One of the examples I have is from insurance claims. So we went through a lot of this thinking on an insurance claim. And again, the value add piece there is I want to be made whole, or the customer piece there is I want to be made whole. Whatever broke, my bathtub overflowed and drywall, whatever, I want to be made whole again from a customer standpoint. I want to trust that the service providers coming into my house are going to do good work. But it's the insurance company who holds that trust relationship. And so went through a lot of focus groups trying to figure out what was important to the customer in that. I want to know that the company is working for me. And it's a lot of nuance and subtleties to that.
You know, it seems like a lot of what you're talking about is no different between a product and a service. You know, it's that, what does the customer think? What do they see? What do they do? Which, you know, whether it's a service or a product, those are very, very similar activities.
They are. It's just whether or not it's going to be physical or information. What am I thinking? What am I feeling? What do I, and a lot of it's about building a trust relationship. And it doesn't have to be trust for the rest of your life. Do I trust them enough to give them my credit card number?
Yeah, that's kind of a question. Speaking of customers and speaking voices, Jamala asks, I'm trying to understand the difference between customer goal and customer thinking. Is it basically that customer thinking is directly related to the quality of the product or service on sale, and customer goals are about the ease of doing business and support services?
So the customer thinking and feeling to me are the anxieties and the frustrations and maybe a little bit more of the verbatims that you would get in a survey, in a compliment or complaint survey. It's a little more raw. It's a little more, I'm an engineer, so I would have to go to the adjective part of a thesaurus to go look up these words. But it's a little, it's squishier. And then when you go to customer goal, it really does try to drive, how are you going to measure trust? How are you going to measure that you're going to take care of me? So when I get to goal, I'm one step closer to being able to measure something. I don't know how to measure some of the squishiness that I get in a customer survey, but I need to be able to understand it and do something with it and hopefully roll it up into something that I can measure if that interaction is the most important one. And different people are going to have different important interactions.
I'm reminded of the quote that's attributed to Albert Einstein. Not everything that we can count counts.
Yeah.
Not everything that counts can be counted.
I love it. I'm not sure I've heard that one, but yeah, that's I think the difference between those two is how do we roll it up into something that we think we can measure or could measure, but a lot of it we can't. So we're kind of back to the survey: do you like us? Do you not like us?
Okay.
If you can figure out what their problem is, or if you can solve it without it becoming a problem, then you're pretty good.
All right. There's a message in the chat talking about they love the LL Bean story, and they had a similar experience, which was just the opposite. The company lost them as a customer, and they convinced they lost many more. In addition to not learning about the cause of the failed product. Okay, so let's see. We got another one here. This is from Orlando. How to adapt your journey maps to the world he calls Banny, brittle, anxious, nonlinear, and incomprehensible, where we're living. How do you adapt these journey maps to that?
So I kind of like it as an overlay. So I come from a basic lean world. I would always look at it for waste and where we have waste. I like the idea of taking your brittle acronym, and once I get kind of those top 3 or 4 layers done, so the what am I thinking and feeling, what are my goals, and the basic map in the middle, overlaying a brittle framework. Which of these are
brittle.
Which of these?
Yeah, brittle, anxious, nonlinear, and incomprehensible, or the initial, or the letter BANI. Yeah.
BANI. So which of these are brittle? A lot of software is brittle. How are these relationships look? Nonlinear. I may go straight to ordering something and then back all the way out to, oh, wait a minute, I want to look at my options. And then the incomprehensible, that is the goal of all of us, is to simplify and clarify what's going on.
Okay.
And then I think that what am I thinking and feeling hopefully captures the anxiousness part. That's a new one on me.
Yeah.
I wrote that down.
I just posted something in the chat to everyone describing what that BANI acronym means. I don't know if everybody knows that one. Okay, here's another one. Maybe we're kind of getting close to the end here, but I've got another good one here from Brian. He says, what are the benefits of this approach over quality function deployment, comma, voice of the customer, comma, etc.? I think he's talking about more traditional or older techniques. What do you think about that?
I love QFD. I think QFD could be applied after the fact once you really understand what your trade-offs are. The hardest part to me on QFD is really quantifying those trade-offs. If we could really understand the process or product from a customer standpoint, I think it makes QFD easier. I think it's just a little more modern. I mean, TQM hits on a lot of this. I like the visual part of it. And again, my favorite use of this is make it an A3, and it is my roadmap for the next couple of years. I can take it to a CEO and he would understand it. I can take it to somebody in IT and get them to help understand what I'm trying to do big picture. I think there are lots of pages behind it as we talk about specific goals and metrics and dashboards that would measure outputs. We would specifically have the different types of projects and technology roadmaps that would support it. But to me, it's business on a page is what I really like about it.
Okay. We did have a question earlier, but I think you got into it at the end of your talk, how business opportunities or improvements are identified in the customer journey map. You did cover that, right?
I did. So I like to do all the customer stuff first. Again, I try to stay in my customer's shoes as long as I can, but we're not just doing it for that. We really want to translate it into great. How does this reflect on what we're doing? What do we need to change? Where do we need to up our game? Where do we need to invest? Where do we need to train? And all of those things. But if we really do understand what the customer wants and thinks and feels, then hopefully our efforts to meet those requirements are a lot clearer and we're not guessing. Oh, the customer just wants it faster. Do they really, or do they just want to be able to do it easier? And there actually is a difference between easier and faster. So really trying to understand that, and if we can align everybody to that voice of customer, then hopefully we're doing less, we're doing more projects that are customer focused and less that are just, we need to do improvement projects. They're actually focused on something that will, A, the customer will recognize, and B, hit the bottom line.
Okay. I got a question of mine, and then I have one more from the audience. In her book, Nancy Teague, her book, The Quality Toolbox, she has one tool in there on this that I always remembered. Okay, she calls it customer window, and I think it's something that would be used in an early stage when a firm is just trying to get their feet on the ground and understand what's going on here with customer, where you're going with the customer journey. She says you ask a set of questions of your employees, and you ask a set of questions of your customers, and the questions are, ask your customers, what do we do well? What are we good at? And what do you value of ours? But then you ask the same two questions of your employees. What do our customers think we do well? And what do our customers value? And then you map it in a 2x2 matrix. You do it in a matrix, a scoring of these things. And you're saying, how do our customers' perceptions of us compare to our employees' perceptions of us? See, I think that's an early tool that would be used to say, oh my God, we've got a hole here, right?
I think key buying factor analysis is another tool like that. So it's a little more specific on characteristics, but it's kind of a scale, pick your scale, 1 to 5, 1 to 10, how well do we do these things? And then the second one is, which of these 10 things are most important to you, and force rank them. And do we do the things that are most important, the best or the worst? And it's a nice little quick gap analysis.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. I guess we have time for one more question here. Bola asks the question, how does this approach compare with design thinking? He says, I am linking it to the customer goals.
I think it's exactly, I think it's one of the outcomes of design thinking. To me, the predecessor tools to this are empathy maps and personas, and I think it's a big piece of design thinking.
Okay, wonderful. Well, Lisa, thank you very much. We appreciate you spending your time with us this afternoon and evening. We would like to close here with a couple of things. So, let me go ahead here and bring up I'm going to share my my presentation here. Okay. So we'd like to remind everybody that it is ASQ that brings you these talks. If you are not a member of ASQ, we'd encourage you to become a member of ASQ. And it is also coming from the Quality Management Division. We organize and put these things on. The Quality Management Division is a subset of ASQ, and we, as volunteers, put these things together. We have some webinars coming up. We've got these 5 of them already planned this year. And I mentioned a QR code. This QR code will take you to our registration page, which will enable you to see what else is happening, where these things are, where they're coming up. We've got one, yes, I'll be doing one in February on measuring process and organizational performance. We've got one from Jay Arthur on healthcare zero harm, $1 trillion prescription. Then we have another one with a pair of us working on multi-generational team environments. That's going to be interesting. Zach is young and I am old, so we're going to partner on that one. Karen Berg is going to give us a talk in May on enhancing data monitoring, auditing, and risk assessment. And Diana Baldi is going to give us a talk in June on Bloom's taxonomy, which is an important piece of getting certified with ASQ. We want to remind people that My ASQ is a source of information that you can use. It's a little similar to LinkedIn, but it's for ASQ professionals. This particular link in the Communities, Home 28. This takes you to the Quality Management Division section of My ASQ. And if you would like to volunteer and help us at Quality Management Division get these sort of things done, you can contact Carol Loveland. Her email is listed, carolloveland@ymail.com. Yes, that's a Y there. And again, we want to thank everybody for coming here, being part of this, and identifying what's going on here. So we want to thank all of you for participating. We want to say goodbye for today. And again, look for us later on. We will stop our recording at this point.